Hi guys, Blaze here. Time for book reviews. The first review I'm going to do is on Spells for the Solitary Witch by Eileen Holland. I really like this book. I like the way she wrote it. I like the topics she's covered. There's some very, very good spells in here. Some of them get a little lengthy and calling 13 goddesses or whatever. Every once in a while they get a little lengthy. All in all, it was a really good book. She has a whole chapter on tea potions. If y'all are into that, I know a lot of us like to make different tea potions. And she goes into making the tea potions for different things, not only brewing certain kinds of teas, but putting other herbs and crystals and stuff in them, or drinking them out of a certain color cup, or a certain day, or whatever, to make the potion a little bit more powerful. I'd have to say my 3 favorite spells in this book, and I'm looking very forward to doing them soon, is the Bursting Bubble spell, which I love bubble wrap. Ever since I was little, my parents used to save bubble wrap for me because it would amuse me for hours. And as a young adult, anytime I got stressed out, I was popping bubble wrap. I got to thinking about it, and on a psychological level, when I sat down and I was popping the bubbles on bubble wrap, anything that was bothering me, I was pouring it into that bubble and then popping it, like wishing it'd go away. Well, the Bursting Bubble spell works very much like this. That you're just basically, you're setting it around a ritual and doing it. Very, very good, and I may even, do another video if anybody wants to know about this and read you the actual spell. But for today, I'm not going to. There was some of us had a discussion about witches' bottles not too long ago. There is a 7 blessings witch's bottle, where it is a layered witch's bottle, and each layer symbolizes something important to you, and the things that you ask of the bottle and of the spell. And she's got, different examples of what's put in each layer for each thing, or different examples of layers that you can put in it, whatever appeals to you. And the last one that I found that would be very, very helpful is a boundary spell. Like if you have neighbors or co-workers or relatives or something that don't respect your space. They do not get the concept of, this is my area, that's your area. Not that we can't all share our space, but there are times that we can't. And land in the world doesn't belong to just one man. I understand that, but at the same time, the way the world is set up right now, we each have a piece of land, or a space that is considered our sacred space. And in society, a lot of people will get along and respect that. But there are a few that will not leave you alone and will not respect your space. So this is the type of thing that helps. And it's not based on hurting anybody. It's not based on taking vengeance or anything like that. It's just kind of a magical representation of a boundary and a manifestation of that. So very, very interesting, and looking forward to using those. But very, very good book. I look forward to reading a lot more of hers. Matter of fact, I did read one. I actually got this book. I was thinking of a beginner that I knew that might get something out of this book. She keeps asking me about, my beliefs and what I believe in, and, the rules and all this stuff. So I thought maybe this would help her to understand things. But I got addicted to this book. This is a good book for anyone who is starting out or anyone who has been in the craft for a while and gets a lot of questions and doesn't know quite how to answer some of the questions. This lady had, it's Eileen Holland and Cyrilla, I think it is, Witch's Book of Answers. Very good book. Evidently, they had a learning website for a while to help educate, and all this information gathered. So they decided to write a book. They wrote a book. I never did find out what the name of the first book was. And this is everything else that was left over. And it is so interesting because it's all your basics, all your basic questions that you get as a pagan Wiccan, or anyone who follows a nature path gets. But you can also tell from the questions, there'll be a question and then one or both people will respond to it. And you could tell on the website that they had to deal with people who were not only learning and needed more knowledge, but also people who were struggling with their path, and also trolls. So there's some snappy comeback stuff in here, ways to deal with trolls too. Two of the things that I think were really good information, I didn't even think to get out, markers and tabs and stuff, so I was over halfway through the book. But one thing that I did mark was, she was talking about what can I do about a very creepy neighbor, and she was talking about Four Thieves vinegar. Was a standard potion used when dealing with negative neighbors. Then under that she put, Four Thieves vinegar is something that different witches make differently. To me, based on my research in herbs, it must have garlic and rue in red wine vinegar base in order to be called Four Thieves vinegar. Some American folk magic traditions make it with 4 ingredients. That's why you get the Four Thieves vinegar from. But I thought that was interesting because I wasn't expecting that in the general questions book. And also, how do you feel about having ghosts or spirits in your home? And it says, some witches like them around or even seek to communicate with them, but I can't stand them in my space or anywhere near me. This is coming from Eileen. I use garlic, sea salt, and rosemary when a spirit is around. It makes a barrier they cannot cross. So it is useful for keeping them out of places you don't want them. And, I could understand, wanting to go to sleep and, somebody's following you around trying to tell you something. It's quite irritating. You need your sleep. So, I found that interesting that they covered that in here. And I marked it and figured I'd pass it along. This next book, this is a really good starter book. A really good, getting started and learning your Sabbats and, what to do, and familiarizing yourself with why a Sabbat exists and which cultures do what with it. I got it basically to help my son understand, but I find myself, there's a lot more information in here than I thought there was. The differences in names and in what the different cultures do for each Sabbat. So I'm reading through it season by season in case I'm missing something. So I'm kind of doing for you beginners that are doing the kind of the year and a day thing to understand the cycles of nature, learning how to celebrate the Esbats and the Sabbats. This is a very good book. It's called Sabbats by Eden McCoy. And each section has what the Sabbat's about, what it's called, what they do in different cultures, recipes, little hobby things that you can do, and what you're supposed to be working on during the season. Like right now, we are approaching spring, so we're supposed to be concentrating on light energy, light work, seeing auras, practicing auras, and knowing the meanings of the different colors in the auras, and bonding with the winter wildlife that's fixing to go to sleep. I'm sorry, the winter wildlife that's waking up. Excuse me, I'm out of it today. But very good for starters, and very good for refreshing your memories of what you've already learned, and also if you were like me in the beginning, you studied the books that you could find and what you had, which was one general path. And with this type of book, it makes it very interesting because you get to study the other types of paths as well. Okay, last book. I only made it about part of the way through this book. I had never read these authors. I'd seen a video where somebody went as far as to call these authors arrogant, said they didn't like reading them at all. I don't generally go by what other people say on books because we all have different tastes, so I gave them a chance. The book looked interesting and covered a lot, the table of contents looked like it covered a lot of stuff I was interested in. It's A Witch's Guide to Psychic Healing by Gavin and Jovan Frost. Okay. I got about halfway through this book. I got very frustrated with it because, one, it skimmed the surface of everything and didn't go into detail about hardly anything. Two, they are very knowledgeable in some things and not so knowledgeable in others, and when they are not, how can I put this? When you're reading something that you know a lot about, and it comes off as they're skimming the surface and pretending to know what they're talking about in something they're not fluently educated about, it does come off a bit arrogant. It got almost yan points because it was stuff that they didn't agree with or they didn't understand, is kind of the feel I got to it. Now, trying to see when this was copyrighted in 2003, so it could have been written in the early 2000s or earlier. We have had a lot of progress as far as science and medical stuff goes, and when they touched on this type of thing, it did not come off very well. So, to me, this book, as interesting as it looked, and the table of contents in it looked extremely good, like you would learn something and be able to heal yourself from it. I don't believe I learned anything that I didn't already know. I don't believe anybody could learn anything from this book if they can't get on the internet. So, I do not recommend this book. The other three I recommend. Like I said, this one, The Witch's Book of Answers, it is nothing but a book of questions and answers. But there's some good stuff in here. But I definitely recommend, if you like doing spells and you need, you don't necessarily need somebody's help to write spells, but you need ideas. This book is good for whether you do the person's spells, which, I don't really agree with doing spells verbatim out of a book, but I get spell books to give myself ideas. But this one's really good, and there are a couple of them in here that are written the way that I would do a spell. So, a very good book, and I do really, really wholeheartedly endorse this one. This one's really good. And this one. This one's a good one for beginners. So, yeah. That's it. Hope that helped. Bless the